Welcome back to ATL Day One. I'm Tenitra Batiste, and Hugh Douglas is sitting in for our boy Jarvis Davis as he wraps up an amazing birthday weekend, or week. I'm sure he'll tell us about it when he gets back. But we got the three-time Pro Bowler here, former Eagle, and I know he had other teams, but I always like to talk about his Eagles days because that's where I fell in love with his game. This is one of my good friends in the industry who decided that he would grace me with stopping by. Of course, he is of the morning show on 92.9 The Game here in the A as well. So thanks again, Hugh, for stopping by. And thank you guys for always rocking with us and subscribing with us, getting us over that 2,000 subscriber hump over on YouTube. So continue subscribing, following, liking. We appreciate you. And of course, wherever you download your podcast, check us out and give us a 5-star review as we try to bring you 5-star content each and every day. Now, Hugh, the NBA draft is always a 5-star event for me because, like you said, you've got the flair for the dramatic in the outfits. Sometimes you have the flair for the dramatic in the actual draft, but I thought last night was relatively quiet and definitely quiet for the Hawks. I know for me, in our Thursday convo, I said that, hey, this squad is going to look different from Thursday to Friday. But you also made a great point saying, but it might not look dramatically different because you had a feeling that the Hawks might not make any major moves, which they did not. They stood pat at 16, picked up AJ Griffin, the small forward out of Duke University, and then ended up trading the 44th pick, moving into the 51 spot. 44th pick went to the Warriors. Hawks got a couple $1 million and ended up picking the guard, Tyrese Martin, out of UConn. And that is where they stood. So with the 16th pick in the NBA draft, the Atlanta Hawks select AJ Green, small forward from Duke University. That's my Adam Silver impression that I hope I got right, but I somewhat, I was a little animated with it, but I know that fans at the draft party were pretty pleased with the AJ Griffin pick. They were okay with the fact that the Hawks stood pat at 16. However, you could hear rumblings that they wanted them to do a little something just in terms of making a big splash. But that being said, Hugh, let's just talk about the Hawks move and the fact that it wasn't big at all. And the picks, I mean, what do you think about the picks, especially the number 16 pick?
You know what's funny, Tenitra? When I look at it, you talk about AJ Griffin. He was projected to go higher.
Yes.
And he actually fell in the Hawks' lap. And I think that was one of the things that they liked about him. Plays forward, fluid shooter.
Yes.
They say high volume shooter. That's what I know about him. But this is the irony. Coach McMillan does not play young guys. He doesn't. I should say he
at least the reputation, right?
Yes, he hasn't. Because we talked about Jalen Johnson yesterday.
Yep.
We talked about Sharif Cooper. You talked about AJ Griffin. Me and John Fricky said this morning, probably going to end up playing for the G League. Probably going to play for the Skyhawks and try to develop there because he is only 18 years old.
Yes.
Now, with that being said, the NBA, for whatever reason, has it a little bit backwards when they conduct business from this aspect.
Yes.
You have the draft first.
Right.
Then next week, it's free agency. So I will say this to all of that Hawks fans are looking at. We still have free agency.
Yes.
And I think that we have some pieces, developmental pieces. I know we keep throwing John Collins' name out there, and I'll tell you to a man, you know, you are down there every night watching the Hawks play. I feel like myself personally, John Collins is going to be here. I just feel like that. I feel like listening to the conversations that are being had about this team, listening to guys talk about how last year, you know, there was a lot of injuries.
Mm-hmm.
This team was young still. They're still a young team. Had some success early. I think, and, you know, guys got paid. And they probably was living a little high on the hog, being a little fat caddies, came into the season thinking it was going to be easy, thinking that the season was going to be a cakewalk, and they realized it wasn't. Because let's be honest, Tenitra, we sat there many of Monday mornings or Tuesday mornings or whenever the Hawks played the night before, and they get a big win against a team that nobody thought they were going to beat.
Right.
And then turn right back around and get their butt kicked by the Detroit Pistons, and you're looking like, damn,
what just happened?
Beat the Memphis Grizzlies
right.
without Trae Young. They just beat the Memphis Grizzlies, and then turn right back around and get your butt kicked. Get your butt kicked.
I mean,
by the Detroit Pistons. So it's one of those things where I think some things were said in haste. because everybody was frustrated by the way the season was going, because it was a roller coaster ride. You talk about the
It was.
injuries, you talk
It
about
really
the
was.
losses that they took, you talk about backdooring your way into the playoffs and everything. I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like a lot of
COVID.
people feel, yes, COVID. I just and during COVID, signing guys off the street
Right.
instead of playing the young guys, trying to give them a shot.
Right.
We did see Sharif Cooper, Jalen Johnson for a little while,
Yes.
but so I think it's one of those things where they feel like if everything rolls the right way, they have a pretty good squad now. That doesn't necessarily say everybody's going to be here. I think that there are going to be
Right.
a couple of changes, but I think the consensus is a lot of people think there's going to be 2 or 3 starters that are going to be gone.
Yeah. And
I don't know if that's the case. 1, maybe 2.
uh-huh.
And I think they're going to focus more, me personally, I think they're going to focus more on trying to get some more offensive firepower. Because when you look at it as a whole, defense was an issue. And I know everybody's talking about that. A glue guy, they're talking about a P.J. Tucker type player.
Right.
But I think offensively, when you look at the playoffs and how it went, the fact that Trey Young was shut down scoring, I think that's what they're going to try to focus on, trying to get some more points out of somebody or get somebody that's more of a consistent shooter.
Right. And I think that's why you go and get an AJ Griffin, because you just said the word that I was going to put out there, which is consistency. Whether at the guard position or whether on the wing, you really just couldn't count night in and night out. You just wondered, when Bogey was on, he was on. When Gallo was on, he was on. When Kev was on, he was on. But when they were off, it was like off the cliff. It was off the cliff. And so you can understand why an AJ Griffin with a 49% clip from 3 would be that person, because especially if you have those holes here and there defensively on the wing where you can't stop anybody, and you hope, of course, that they address that issue this season, but you at least want to be able to keep up with them on a consistent basis. And granted, we know that the Hawks offensive rating typically hovered in the 1 or 2 spot, but again, it goes back to the inconsistencies that we saw, and whether or not, yes, you do want to say injuries were an undercurrent of that. That COVID situation that happened to them in December that just decimated the entire roster. But you also can't take away the fact that other teams had to deal with that as well. Other top Eastern Conference teams, and they weathered the storm and kept it moving. So, yeah, I do think that was what part of the appeal was with AJ Griffin. But low key, he does play defense. And, I have to say that because defense is my favorite word in the basketball English language, probably.
Yeah.
Or two-way play might be my favorite 2 words. So the fact that he is committed to defense, I really, really like that. And the fact that he plays somewhere between the 2-3, I think that gives Nate McMillan a lot of flexibility. Now, low key, what I do think, Hugh, is that the notion of Nate McMillan having a reputation for not playing rookies is going to be challenged this year.
Oh, yeah, no question.
I wouldn't say Nate McMillan is on the hot seat, but we might call that bad boy lukewarm. And depending on how the season goes in the beginning, what Griffin's summer league play looks like, or maybe how he looks in training camp, that may get him some early reps or some early minutes. And then what he does with that time, barring injury, taking that out of the equation, what he does with that time may push Nate to give a little bit more opportunity to Griffin than say he did Jalen Johnson. And Griffin may be a little bit more ready to play or contribute than say, Jalen Johnson was. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of pushes that envelope to maybe make Nate think a little bit more about that. But also wanted to go back to something where I really thought that, and I won't say disappointed, but I do think that there's still a question mark around the secondary ball handler, right? And getting that individual. So it goes back to what you said. The NBA is a flip-flop. So we had the draft. That's, where it was what it was. But the big question is still, what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks in free agency? And what do they essentially do in that 2, 3, 4 spot? Because we all know one's good. And 5 is probably good, because who are you going to go and get out there that's comparable, whose salary you can actually take on without giving away the whole dang team, right? So that might end up dictating the 5. So that really kind of leaves it down to the 2, 3, 4. And some may even say it leaves it to the 2 and the 4, because you really don't hear a lot about DeAndre Hunter in some of these trade rumors, right?
No, it's Bogey. For the most part, it's Bogey and it's John Collins.
Yep.
And I'm a wholehearted believer that they feel like, whatever reason, John Collins might not be the 2, but he could probably be the 3. That might be the case. But it's a situation where I think all of these questions that we have about the Hawks are going to be answered next week during free agency.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they are in a position where they didn't do a whole lot in the draft, but it's a possibility that free agency is where they plan on making their mark, and they're probably going to be, a free agent in the free agent market.
Yeah, and Hugh, I am perfectly with that because again, it was a quiet night. Draft night was so nobody really made any major blockbuster trade moves per se on that night. So I was okay. I'm okay with the fact that the Hawks still have opportunity, right? Space and opportunity in the free agency market because nobody really did anything. And I can respect the fact that they're probably sitting back, just like with that $2 million that came along with the 51st pick, right? We may not understand it because it may not directly impact the luxury tax or the salary cap. But we also know that a Travis Schlink and a Landry Fields don't make moves just to make moves. A Tony Wrestler, they don't just do things to do things. So I do think that there is still some inner workings going on behind the scenes to make sure, to your point, I believe that JC's probably gone, but only predicated on it has got to be everything has to fall in place and make sense for the Hawks. It's not just going to be, oh, we're getting rid of John Collins. If the Hawks don't get them something back that at least gets them in the top 4 to contend next season. So when we come back, we'll talk about somebody who has been a contender for as long as we can remember on the Atlanta scene, but has evolved into an international star and is about to get his flowers. We'll talk about it in For the Culture on the other side of ATL Day One.